In this episode, we speak with Eric Kinariwala, the founder and CEO of Capsule, a technology business rebuilding the pharmacy industry from the inside out, with an emotionally resonant consumer experience and technology that enables customized outcomes for doctors, hospitals, insurers, and manufacturers. The origin of Capsule stems from a terrible experience Eric had at the drugstore. A sinus infection turned into Eric questioning the inconvenient way individuals have to jump through several hoops to get prescriptions. He created the type of pharmacy made up of friendly, caring pharmacists who carry prescriptions straight to your door at the tap of your phone. Eric spent the early part of his career as an investor across healthcare, technology, and retail. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. If you like the episode, click to follow.
RJ Lumba is the executive chairman of Market Insight Media and the managing partner of GrowthCap. He is the host of Great Entrepreneurs, a podcast for driven entrepreneurs and business owners. Our podcast covers all topics related to the entrepreneurial journey, from ideation to execution to optimization and to reaping the rewards of a well-run business. In the minutes ahead, we'll share with you unique insights and tactics from some of today's most accomplished and inspiring entrepreneurs.
Eric, nice to see you again. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Great to be here.
So since we last spoke actually on my other podcast, which was about 4 years ago, you were already well on your way. You had brought in a lot of capital. The company was scaling. Now you've brought in even more capital partners and seem to have an even more dominant position in this competitive field. Tell us a little bit about Capsule today and kind of the strides you've made since the inception.
Sure. So Capsule, as a recap, is the largest digital pharmacy in the US. We've taken all of the familiar frustrations of going to the pharmacy and picking up your medications and dealing with your insurance company and all of those things and use technology to streamline that whole process. So we've made it so that you can go to your doctor, tell them Capsule is your pharmacy in 3 clicks. Check your medication out. You've got price transparency. We can look up your insurance. You can chat or text with a pharmacist, and then we'll deliver that medication to your house the same day. And then on an ongoing basis, we'll coordinate any insurance or refills or any complications you have with your doctor, your insurance company, to make that all really simple so that you can kind of go on and do other things with your life, but make sure that your and your family's medication are being taken care of. The business is doing quite well. So we operate in about a third of the US today with that same day delivery promise and the consumer experience. And one of the things that we've probably spent incrementally more time on over the last couple of years is really focused on solving problems for physicians. And it turns out that doctors interact with the pharmacy like 30 times a day. You and I might interact with it once or twice a month, but your doctor and her staff are interacting with it all the time. And there's all of these friction points that happen for the doctor. That's kind of one. And then 2 is that sort of like the world of healthcare has slowly but surely been evolving from this idea that the more often you go to your doctor, the more money he makes, to a world where, gosh, like your doctor gets incentivized to just keep you healthy. And pharmacy and medication is one meaningful component of that. And so we've actually built a number of software products and tools to enable physicians to earn these financial incentives that the government's put out there to help people make sure they get their medications, they're taking them, they don't have side effects, that they're having a really streamlined experience with their pharmacy, in addition to just saving docs a whole bunch of administrative time that they have to deal with because traditional pharmacies are just not set up to look after physicians. So I'd say that's one of the big differences maybe between now and last time we spoke. We spent a lot more time building out the product suite there and have seen a lot of demand and engagement from physicians and physician groups.
I'd love to learn more about the solutions to the physicians from the common man's perspective. Obviously, if they're going to CVS or Walgreens to get their medications, CVS and Walgreens also delivers. So do you kind of like view yourselves as the Amazon for prescriptions, for drug delivery or drug purchasing versus the kind of more brick and mortar hybrid digital solutions? How do you kind of position yourselves in this overall big pharma market?
It is a big market. You're right. There's 70,000 pharmacies in the US. 70% of American adults go to the pharmacy once a month, and it's like a $400 or $500 billion category. So it is massive. And I think our expectation is that there's room for multiple companies to attack that space. and that the people over time that are going to take the most market share are the ones that deliver the most value. And what's interesting about healthcare, and pharmacy is not an exception, is that there are multiple stakeholders to create value for. And primarily it's three folks. One is the consumer, because they're ultimately making the purchase decision. The second is the doctor, because they're making a prescribing decision and have influence over where that prescription might go. And the third is the insurance company, because they're ultimately paying for the vast majority of the medication that you might get at the pharmacy counter. And so I would say it's digital first. And we think an increasing number of consumers want digital first solutions in healthcare and specifically in pharmacy. And so today, about 2% of the market is digital and online. And our expectation is that that continues to grow like it does and has in a lot of other categories, whether that's grocery, whether that's booking a flight or banking. Remember like 20 years ago, you'd have to go to the bank to do something. Now you do that in an app. 20 years ago, I remember my parents used to pick up the phone and call Delta Airlines to book a flight. Now you do that in the app. And I think healthcare is behind the curve on that, but catching up. And pharmacy is going to be one of the first places where you really see mass adoption digitally on that. I think one of the things that's easy to assume kind of on the outside looking in is that our business is primarily about delivery and that the value proposition is primarily about delivery. We do have really fantastic delivery, lots of delivery options. Our delivery is free. Our couriers are in-house, they're background checked, they're HIPAA trained, they're drug tested. The consistency, the quality, the reliability, the safety of the delivery is better than anyone else. But I don't think that delivery ultimately is going to be a differentiator in any category. Like I think that the modern consumer experience for retail, whether you're shopping at Petco or PetSmart or Target or Walmart or whatever, like having delivery is going to be a core component of that experience over time. Now, quality, reliability, cost, like different story. And I think there will be a dimension that people compete on that. But with pharmacy, it's really different from buying a pack of batteries or a book on an e-commerce site like Amazon or Walmart. Pharmacy is way more complicated, right? Pricing is determined by your insurance company. You need to engage with the doctor. There's inconsistent or unreliable inventory sometimes. There's kind of all of these complications. And so consumers have inherently more need for a service component and somebody who's really thoughtful and caring in the form of a pharmacist that can actually look after you and help you navigate the complexities of what's going on in healthcare. And the thing that enables that to be cost effective and scale is the technology platform that we built sort of underlying that. But it's very different, right? You can't just go to our website or anyone's website and just say, hey, I want to buy some Lipitor. Let me add it in my shopping cart and you'll send it to me. There's a whole host of things that have to happen between those two things happening.
Right. So a delivery aside cost, how does Capsule play in this realm of cost and pricing, or does it play?
Our objective is to be the most efficient pharmacy at the lowest cost that offers the very best consumer experience. And we believe that we can do that, one, because the model doesn't involve having 10,000 stores and all the associated overhead with that. And two, because we've built a technology to enable our pharmacists and other people that work at the company to be really, really efficient. We've deployed a bunch of automation, some using some of the advances in generative AI and other things to be able to let pharmacists do the thing they're great at, which is actually building a relationship with you and your family to help you understand the medications you're taking, help you navigate the complexity of insurance, all of those things, and then making the things that computers are really good at doing, letting computers do those things and letting humans do the things they're good at doing, letting the humans do those things.
Interesting. And how do you view Mark Cuban's, entrance into the market of cost plus pricing?
Yeah, we love it. I think anybody and any person and a company that is bringing light and creating attention to there is absolutely a better and different way than using the traditional way things have been done, we think is a good thing. And one of the big things in healthcare and specifically in pharmacy is that people just aren't aware that they're resigned to the fact that they have to use this subpar experience that the conventional companies in the space provide. And so whether it's Amazon entering the category, whether it's Mark Cuban, whether it's other people that are doing new and innovative things, like we're big fans of that. It's a huge category. No one's going to win all of it. Anything that makes it better for the consumer, we're just big supporters of. I think Mark is still evolving what and how he wants to try and upend the category. And I think the cost plus pharmacy was sort of the first iteration of that. But my expectation is that what he's doing in pharmacy, if he's still doing something in 5 years in pharmacy, is going to look pretty different from what he's doing today.
Yeah. Do you ever foresee a point in time where there's so much volume flowing through your platform that you do actually have influence on the cost of drugs? I mean, I live in Princeton, New Jersey, and there's a ton of pharma companies here. Pharma pricing consulting is a massive industry. Just to determine the price of a new drug takes loads of people and hours and computations to figure out. Do you ever see Capsule being able to positively influence drug prices?
I think the question on drug prices is really interesting. And my perspective has always been that looking at just price alone is insufficient, right? So, like, the thing we actually care about is value, not price. And so, something that costs $1 and is ineffective is expensive. And something that costs $10,000 but saves $50,000 later in a hospitalization is effective and valuable. And I think the conversation should really be around that. Otherwise, it's like turning on CNBC and saying, "Hey, this stock is at $50. It's a better deal than this stock that's at 150." Like, nobody that invests in stocks would remotely say that, right? Well, what is the earnings of that company? How much value is it, right? And I think medication is no different. And so I think what Capsule has a really interesting role to play is in creating those real-time feedback loops, because we have so much digital engagement with the consumer, because we've made the experience actually delightful, not painful to engage with. The ability to actually understand in real time, like, is this medication working as intended? Is it creating value for you, the patient? That's one. And then two, over time, being able to tie that data to your doctor's data and your insurance company's data and say, gosh, like, this medication this person has been taking on an ongoing basis is actually preventing other healthcare expenses that they would have otherwise had if they hadn't taken this medication. And then being able to feed that back into, like, what is the value this medication creates? And then, what are people willing to pay for it? I think that's the right conversation, more than this sort of drugs are expensive, drugs are not expensive. It's like, well, relative to what? We have, I think, a really robust set of data and a really, really strong consumer engagement that can enable that conversation to happen in a, I think, more sophisticated way.
So I went to the doctor recently and they prescribed some medication. They said, "What pharmacy do you use?" I said, "CVS." And they said, "Oh, we use this other pharmacy. And so you're going to get what's your phone number? You're going to get a text message and you're going to sign up." It wasn't Capsule, it was someone else, but it was actually like a local digital kind of pharmacy. How do you pick up most of your customers?
We have three primary ways that consumers learn about Capsule. One is through consumer marketing. So that's, pretty traditional things like outdoor advertising, TV, streaming, some digital ads. So that's like one part of it. The second is through physician education, so that physicians and their staff understand when prescriptions flow through Capsule, it's less hassle for them and it's better for their patients. And the third is through partnerships with companies like Teladoc and Oscar Insurance and others that want to bring the Capsule experience to their entire member base. And we've built out a whole set of APIs on the technology platform that makes it really easy for digital companies or large physician groups to integrate directly into their electronic medical record system so that they can offer Capsule to their patients in a really seamless way. So those are the three kind of core ways that we drive demand, in addition to word of mouth and just sort of organic people talking about and sharing their positive experiences.
The space seems competitive. Is it a land grab?
Oh, I don't think it's a land grab. I think that getting your prescription filled is competitive. I think having an excellent experience as a physician or a consumer in getting and managing your medications, or having an experience that actually helps you earn financial incentives as a physician, is very, very open and greenfield. There are plenty of people focused on come get this medication or I can deliver this to you with a third party courier, but not a lot of people focused on how do I make this really seamless, really easy to use, and actually help you manage your and your family's health. So I think it depends on the lens with which you look at it. But we've always thought, and I don't think this view has changed over years, like, the biggest competition is just the old way of doing things. 91% of prescriptions still get picked up in store. And that number hasn't moved. It's moved a little bit since Capsule has started and sort of started catalyzing kind of this movement around digital pharmacy. But by and large, the vast majority of people pick up their prescriptions in stores. And so that's the real competition.
I think you brought in your last capital round about a few $100 million. How do you allocate that? It seems like you're very focused on the solutions for physicians. Is that the bulk of that capital? Is it going towards that, or is it marketing and other uses?
It's a bunch of different things. So we've invested a lot in building out the internal tools and platform that power the pharmacy. And so, like to say, kind of the business is an iceberg. The 10% that you see in the app is powered by the 90% below the surface that you don't see. And making something as complex as pharmacy, 3 clicks and simple, is actually very hard to do. So there's investment in our platform technologies. There's investment in our suite of products to create value for physicians. And then there's investment in creating awareness, across both consumers and physicians. So I'd say, the primary investments are around product and growth investment.
If we could talk about like the entrepreneurial journey and the challenges you face along the way, let's take the early years first. What was, I guess in your memory, the hardest part of the early phase of getting Capsule off the ground?
I would say there's two kind of things. I'll tell you one like business thing and then one sort of personal entrepreneur thing. On the business thing, this is a very complicated business. There's like a lot of different stakeholders, and you're operating in a very calcified industry structure. So we have a very novel solution to solving a very big problem, but we still buy drugs from the same people all pharmacies buy drugs from. And we still get paid by the same insurance companies that most other healthcare institutions get paid from. We're still regulated by the same regulators. And so I think educating some of these sort of folks who are either not innovative or not as inclined to be innovative about what you're doing in the early days as a no-name, undercapitalized, scrappy startup, and sort of proving your legitimacy to physicians and consumers and other stakeholders is a real sort of thing you need to do to be able to be successful. I think as a leader in the early days, and particularly for a first-time entrepreneur, which I am, I think sort of finding like what is your, and this sounds kind of hokey, but I don't have a better word for it, like finding your sort of authentic leadership style. And what that really means is that in the early days, there's a lot of people that are in your ear about what you should be doing and what you should look like and act like and sound like and operate like as a CEO and a founder. And that's your board, that's your investors, that's your early employees, that's your friends, that's podcasts, blogs, like the whole thing. And if you were to put all of that together, you would just run in a circle because all of that advice is like someone else's advice for someone else's situation for a different person. And so it's all going to conflict. And so ultimately, I think like, look, it's great to ingest all of the advice and feedback and learn from people that have come before who have wisdom to offer. But you have to kind of align that wisdom with what feels right and what is authentic and what plays to your own strengths because every person's different, every company's different. And so I think in the early days, kind of like moving through that like natural process as you kind of build a team and get your bearing on scaling something pretty quickly, particularly on the team side.
So how would you describe your leadership style?
This is not my phrase, but I read a blog post by a friend of mine, and he has this phrase called supportive yet demanding. But I love that concept. And so, I think my objective is, and we have two company values at Capsule that are really oriented around this concept because it's authentic to me. But it's really about how do I enable the people on the team to be the best versions of themselves and do the best work of their careers. And my ask in return is that they do the same for me. And that together, then we're uplifting each other in a positive, virtuous cycle. And that's the core of kind of everything that we try to do. And that's with consumers, that's with doctors, and that's internally with our team. Is how do we support one another so that we're both better off through this relationship and engagement? That's sort of the leadership style. Not anything other than I just want you to be your best self. So how can I help you do that?
That's awesome. I love that. Looking at your background, you went to the best schools and you went to one of the best consulting firms afterwards. Were you always very academically oriented growing up? I presume yes. Did you show entrepreneurial signs growing up? Did you start things kind of just because you thought it'd be fun?
I was academically inclined for sure growing up. And, it's funny in the first internet boom, so call it, mid to late 90s. So I was probably in middle school, I guess, if I'm doing the math. I had a little business where I helped small businesses. I grew up in suburban Detroit, in a town called Troy, Michigan, and I helped small entrepreneurs basically build the first versions of their websites. And that was kind of my first kind of business. And maybe I should have stuck with it and I would have ended up building Shopify. But that was like kind of the first entrepreneurial endeavor. And so was always interested in technology and computers and kind of the internet and kind of all that stuff worked. And so kind of a little bit of a detour from that post-college, I was investing at Bain Capital, and then I was at a different investment fund after that, and then kind of found my way back to the entrepreneurial path about 10 years ago.
Excellent. We're coming up on time. I do have two final questions. One is, can you tell us about a person who's had a profound influence on you?
Yeah, that one's easy. That's my mom. My mom is amazing. She's an entrepreneur, worked while raising me, and had a really big impact on how I think about the world, how to treat people, kind of the value of hard work. Her business has some element of like cold calling in it. And so just like that, what it takes to build something from scratch, and also the responsibility and flexibility that can come with being an entrepreneur is something that, I just grew up with, and kind of watching her do that.
Last question. Can you tell us about a charity, cause, or other endeavor that you're passionate about?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm really interested in is early childhood education. If you think about the arc of someone's life, that early phase, it feels like you can make a tremendous impact on people. And so I think that's just a personal area that I'm interested in, kind of across the board. And there's so many different things, from the science of that, in terms of like, when is your brain most, amenable to learning, and what's the methodology? And there's been a bunch of interesting things written about like Maria Montessori and some of her methods. And then there's like a societal piece to that, which is, okay, great. Like, you can design or devise like what is sort of the optimal early childhood education. Where in society does that fit? And how do you kind of get the people who would benefit the most from that, what they need to do? So that's certainly a long-term passion of mine that hopefully I can spend more time on over time.
Excellent. Well, Eric, I want to thank you again for taking the time to chat with us today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. My pleasure.